SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Never take your heart health for granted. For just $99, you can get a complete screening and know your risks. Call 601-249-5198 to schedule your Happy Healthy Heart screening at Southwest Mississippi Regional Medical Center.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I was gonna be the greatest man alive. But now I'm a man, way past 21.
Hey, good morning. Let's go. Let's roll. Let's get after it on this Thursday morning. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi, streaming at supertalk.fm and SuperTalk TV. Thanks for joining us. Richard Cross, Lance Tolbert. Appreciate you beginning your day right here at MRC. The C Spire text line is open. 601-879-4395. That's the number if you would like to join in the conversation. 601-879-4395. Whether you're looking for the best in fiber to the home, the best in business IT services, or simply the best in wireless, give C Spire a try. Move back to C Spire. Jump on board for the very first time. Whatever it is, be sure you check them out online at cspire.com. C Spire, customer inspired. Lance, good morning.
Good morning, RC. What's happening, brother?
Whew. It's been a week, man.
Already, huh?
Yeah, already. I think it was back on about Saturday. It felt like it had been a week, and we hadn't even gotten to it yet. But rocking along. Got a pretty nice day across the state of Mississippi today. Looks like it's going to be a great day for opening day of the college baseball season tomorrow. Today in Oxford, sunny and 63 with winds out of the east. Just kind of light and breezy at about 5 to 10 miles per hour. Same thing for you in Starkville. Sunny skies, 63 degrees with winds light and variable. Hattiesburg, you've got partly cloudy today with 73 for the high temperature. Put on the short pants and a golf shirt today if you want to in Hattiesburg. And just a tick cooler than that in Gulfport. Sunshine and clouds mixed throughout the day. 69 degrees with an east-southeast wind. 5 to 10 miles an hour. I got to give you this for tomorrow, just since we're doing it. So, opening day of the college baseball season. Tomorrow in Oxford, your high for a 4 o'clock first pitch, 69 degrees. Perfect. And mostly sunny.
Perfect weather.
I mean, we've had this ongoing joke for a decade and a half now. We know what opening day can be like. I'm like, man, it's the start of college baseball season. It's 70 and sunny. It's kind of going to be 70 and sunny tomorrow.
Yeah, it seems like that's usually, I mean, from my experience many years ago, opening day was always amazing. And then it always changed after that for a little while. But yeah, the good Lord loves baseball, I can tell you that.
Starkville, 68 and mostly sunny for game one of the Brian O'Connor era at Mississippi State. And
ooh, that's going to be fun.
Man, I would imagine the crowd will be silly in Starkville tomorrow. How about this? Hattiesburg? Come on, man. Partly cloudy and 76 for opening day. Sign them up. Sign them up. They will all be there.
You got to be peeling people off the golf course to get them over there, because that's
maybe so.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of weather. Come on, man.
Oh, man, the roost will be
it'll
full
be packed
to overflowing. What a time.
Hey, that's what's so awesome about Mississippi's baseball setup with the three big uns. I mean, you got great baseball outside of Ole Miss State and Southern, but the crowds you get at those three, man, it's something else. It really is. I always love to brag on Mississippi when it comes to getting to those baseball games.
Yeah.
I played at a time when there was 2 people, and they would be out there in left field, and you knew them. There'd be 7 more in the stands. That's changed a lot. Now, Starkville's always been somewhat of a mecca. I always loved playing there.
Yeah.
But everyone else has picked up the slack in Mississippi, I can tell you that.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I was one of the 7 that was in the stands back in those days.
It was fun, man. You could hear people talking to each other like, hey, you want to go get a hot dog?
Yeah. Abraham Lincoln was born on this day in 1809. 16th President of the United States, led the country through the Civil War, issued the Emancipation Proclamation, widely regarded as one of the greatest presidents for preserving the Union and abolishing slavery. Very coincidentally, very interestingly, a footnote to history, also born on this day, February 12th, 1809, English naturalist and biologist whose theory of evolution by natural selection outlined in On the Origin of Species fundamentally transformed biology and our understanding of life on Earth. Charles Darwin, also born on this day in 1809.
Man, made the HMS Beagle, right? Wasn't that the boat?
Is that right?
I think it is, yeah.
Okay.
And the Galapagos.
Legendary American basketball player and coach Bill Russell, born today in 1934, widely considered one of the greatest in NBA history. How about 11 championships with the Boston Celtics for Bill Russell?
I put one of those on a pinky toe or something.
Author Judy Blume, born on this day in 1938. Groundbreaking young adult novels like Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, and Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing, addressing real-life issues for children and teenagers. Christina Ricci was born today in 1980. She and I were born the same year. American actress, films like The Addams Family, Buffalo 66, Sleepy Hollow, and Yellow Jackets, career spanning child stardom all the way to dramatic adult performances. It doesn't always work that way when you're a child star. Josh Brolin was born today in 1968. No Country for Old Men, Milk, Avengers, Endgame, Dune. Versatile career drama actor.
Don't forget about Goonies now.
Who could forget about Goonies? The Goonies. And then Omar Bradley was born on this day in 1893. Prominent Army general. During World War II, he was known as the GI's general. Commanded troops in the Normandy invasion and later became the first chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Bradley. He was not one of those 5-star generals, was he?
Yeah, I don't know.
We talked about there were only a few of them. I don't think he was. Don't think so. Some people born on this day. Did you see who died yesterday? James Vanderbeek, 48 years old.
I didn't hear that one. Goodness.
Yeah. Dawson from Dawson's Creek, or if you prefer, Mox.
Oh, Mox, yeah.
From Varsity Blues. It's married and had 6 kids. Died of after a year-long fight with colorectal cancer.
Man.
Awful. Awful stuff. On this day in 1554, Lady Jane Grey, the 9 days Queen of England, executed by beheading at the tender age of 16 under orders from the Queen, Mary I. She had briefly claimed the throne after Edward VI's death, overthrown in a power struggle. And here's the thing, when you get overthrown in those days, if you tried to be the queen or the king, and there was a new queen or king, especially if you did some things that were either a little untoward or perhaps a little unkind, it turned into an off with the head. And that's what it was for Lady Jane Grey. 1909, the founding of the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, became one of the most influential civil rights organizations fighting racial discrimination, lynching, and segregation for over a century. In 1912, I'm going to mess these names up, so bear with me. Puyi, the last emperor of China, at the age of just 6, abdicated the throne. Now, I don't know if this was like a long thought-out decision by the 6-year-old or perhaps somebody suggested that it should be abdicated. But it formally ended over 2,000 years of imperial rule and the Qing dynasty, and it paved the way for the Republic of China amid the Xinhai Revolution.
I think maybe somebody just took his Hot Wheels away and he got mad. I'm out. Y'all do this on your own.
Yeah,
I got better things to do here.
Got a few more things that happened on this day. Then we'll jump into some news headlines with you. We welcome you to join the conversation on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. We're back right after this.
We had them days for blue. I looked over in the corner, Grandma and Grandpa had them too.
From the Venable Glass Traffic.
From the heart of Mississippi to the halls of Washington, D.C., this is Mornings with Richard Cross, your source for hard-hitting political insight and unfiltered truth. Now, here's more on Super Talk Mississippi.
Great Mama, where you been so long? You been hiding out, I know that's true. Great Mama, sure need you.
Good to be with you. It is Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk Mississippi, streaming at supertalk.fm and SuperTalk TV. We had somebody jumped in with us and said that, yes, Bradley was a 5-star general. So Omar Bradley, 5-star general. Thought that was the case, but I couldn't remember for sure. So nice double check for us. 1818, Chile formally declared independence from Spain. There would be a pretty decisive battle, the Battle of MIPA, that came later. It marked a key step in South American liberation movements led by figures like José de San Martín. 1999, United States Senate told Bill Clinton, no big deal. They acquitted him in his impeachment trial on charges of perjury and obstruction of justice stemming from the Monica Lewinsky scandal. He became only the second United States president to be impeached, but not removed from office. It has happened again, right? 1733, General James Oglethorpe, you remember that name from your history books, founded Savannah, Georgia, establishing the colony of Georgia as the 13th British colony in America, unique as a haven at the time for debtors and the poor, and initially banned slavery there in South Georgia. Beautiful town of Savannah.
Oh, it's a beauty, isn't it?
Man. Oh, the live oaks and the barrier islands not far away. Savannah River.
Sister and brother-in-law got married over at Jekyll Island.
Yeah.
Really cool place.
That's a neat spot.
And one of the cool stories, I was sitting at the bar when we got there, and the guy that actually discovered it had been abandoned for decades and decades, really? And he had gotten some kind of permit to go out and dig around on the island, and they found the old Queen Anne hunting lodge, as they called it. And he went out and restored everything and to what it is today. But meeting that guy and just talking to him, and what a risk it was to take to restore all of that. But what it is now, man alive, absolutely beautiful.
Really, really cool
and
spot.
Historic pull, from the Gilded Age.
Yeah.
It lived like no others back then. And I love where the first phone call was placed. You know, I think it went from like D.C. or New York to Jekyll Island and then to San Francisco. And then that old telephone booth was still there. And it was not like somebody's phone at the house. It was like a telephone booth. Can you imagine
Crazy.
Goodyear and those guys walking out and going, hey, big dog, get out of the way. I got to use the phone here, man. You know, you think back then they'd all have a phone, but that was a kind of
hello. They're going to have to call you back quick.
At a time when there's no air conditioning and all that, wearing 8-piece suits and in the middle of the swamp, basically.
Yeah.
But no, what a beautiful place.
Really, really is. 1947, Christian Dior launched his first collection in Paris, introducing the iconic new look characterized by cinched waists, full skirts, and feminine elegance, revolutionizing post-World War II fashion. In 1994, Edward Munch's famous painting, The Scream, was stolen from the National Gallery in Oslo. The theft gained massive international attention and was recovered later that year.
Yeah, I didn't know that was one of many, or several, as it says in one of the other services, of that actual painting, The Scream. I thought that there was only one. Apparently there was several different versions of that. The one we see is the one that obviously gets put on display, and the one that was stolen and returned.
Yeah. I have admitted before that this is a character flaw in the same way that the mob has been romanticized by movie and televisions. By movie and TV shows. I feel like art theft is another one that has been romanticized. It's like, well, I mean, yeah, if you go and break into somebody's house and you steal, you know, their TV and their stuff, their jewelry, that's awful. But an art heist from an art gallery, it's like, who's really getting hurt here? And I'm not suggesting that it's even remotely the right thing to do, but you think about a movie, think how glamorous Thomas Crown Affair, the movie, was with Pierce Brosnan in it.
Well, and the original with Steve McQueen is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, goodness. But yeah, I mean, they say it's the noblest of thieves, the art thief.
I suppose.
Well, that's what they say. So.
Yeah. And then finally, 2002, the war crimes trial of former Yugoslav President Slobodan Milosevic began at The Hague. It was a landmark case for international justice, although he died before the verdict was rendered in 2006. So those are some of the things that have happened on this day in history. Your news headlines, we start in Mississippi. Legislation allowing prayer in public schools has passed with heavy support in the Mississippi House of Representatives. House Bill 1310 sent across the hall to the Senate yesterday after an 80-35 vote. The measure, which was authored by Chuck Blackwell, has been dubbed the Mississippi Open to Religion Act. It would require all public school districts to create a designated time for voluntary prayer and the reading of a religious text, including the Bible, every day. Now, the prayer itself will be entirely optional, with students having to get parental consent before being allowed to participate in religious activities on campus. Schools would be prohibited from publicly broadcasting the time of prayer, and the designated time for these activities would not occur during class time or any other instructional or learning time. When a school or district is sued for allowing prayer or for how the time of reflection is instituted, the Mississippi Attorney General's office would be tasked with providing legal defense for any institution facing litigation. And that's in the bill. Similar measures have been proposed in the past but have not gotten through. Though House Bill 1310 passed with relative ease, it did not come without detractors. House Minority Leader Robert Johnson called the bill unconstitutional. Democrat Jeffrey Harness questioned how schools would accommodate students of multiple religions without ultimately sponsoring religious activities and opening themselves up to unnecessary lawsuits. man, I love the intent here. I really do. Creating an opportunity for faith and prayer activities within a school day setting without interrupting the instructional time, I think that's exceptional. The execution of this, boy, you want to talk about having to thread a needle and not get this tied up in court and litigation for years and years and years, and you empower another Madeline O'Hare or someone like that to, you know. I tell you what, I applaud what our junior high and high school students have done through the years to create these opportunities for themselves. Say, okay, yeah, you may tell us that we can't pray at school, but you can't tell us that we can't meet as a group, and then you can't break up our assembly, a fellowship of Christian athletes, or whatever other organization it might be. So again, a very well-intended bill, I think, from the House. In terms of the execution, it may be hard. Mississippi Senate voted unanimously yesterday to require health insurers to cover biomarker testing. It's technology that helps ensure cancer patients receive the most effective care, joining the House in approving legislation very similar. 52-zip yesterday, Senate Bill 2694, mandating health plans regulated by the Mississippi Department of Insurance, including Medicaid, and the state and the school's employees' health insurance plan provide coverage for biomarker testing when used for the diagnosis, treatment, appropriate management, or ongoing monitoring of a patient's cancer. Biomarker testing analyzes biological indicators through blood or tissue samples to help doctors identify which treatments are most likely to be effective for a specific cancer. Under the bill, insurers that deny coverage for a biomarker test would have to provide written justification why. Companion bill to this in the House passed 117-0 last month. It was called Jill's Law. I think this is great. I do think you have to recognize that you're going to have to pay for this. If you mandate that an insurance company covers something, they will say, okay, we will cover it. Somebody's got to pay for it. They're not going to do it just out of the goodness of their heart and their pocketbook.
It's time to get real. Keeping it real.
It's time for you to get real with it.
And keeping it Mississippi. Your voice for statewide and national politics. Yes! Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
What's different about us? I don't really know. No matter how I try, I just can't make her cry.
I thought this was parody. This is a post on X that I thought this was like straight out of the Babylon Bee. The SAVE Act is a war on married women who have changed their last names. If your birth certificate, license, and social security card don't perfectly align, you will be blocked from voting. Hashtag hands off her vote. I thought that was a parody. And then I looked to see who it was, and it's Democratic strategist, former DNC national field director, advisor to the Hillary Clinton campaign, and reposted by female sports right. Like, they're serious.
Oh, yeah, it's all over the place.
We'll get into the SAVE Act in a bit.
It's like somebody was giving a handbook of what to read here.
Including, it took a while, but the Senate Majority Leader has finally signed on as a co-sponsor of the SAVE Act as it heads toward the Senate. Hey. But first, back here in Mississippi, bills that would authorize the state to seize the gambling earnings of those who owe child support have passed in both chambers of the Mississippi legislature. Attempts to do this in the past have failed. Lawmakers once again taking a stab at the measure. They recognize that it might be complicated. You've got House Bill 520, Senate Bill 2369 approved in their respective chambers with overwhelming support. Measures that would require the Gaming Commission and the Department of Human Services to establish a framework for collecting wages from those who win $2,000 or more at the slot machine or from sports betting. Card and table games like poker and craps excluded from the penalty. DHS would be tasked with creating a database showing who owes child support and working with casinos to exchange information. There were some concerns espoused in the House over sensitive information like Social Security numbers being accessed by casinos. Lawmakers said no big deal. Only information related to who owes child support would be exchanged. Truth of the matter is there are a lot of people that don't pay child support even though a court has told them or a judge has told them they owe it. A report from the Census Bureau found that 30% of American parents owed child support payments were not being paid, and under half were given the total amount that they were actually entitled to receive. Now the House and Senate will do the old swapperoo with their bills and assess each other's legislation. If either measure is passed and signed into law by the governor, the Gaming Commission and the Department of Human Services have until the 1st of January to set up the parameters of how this just might work. So we're going to ask multiple governmental agencies to coordinate with a database of those who have unpaid child support due and match those up with people that win over $2,000 either at a slot machine or through a sports betting place. Got it. Let's go to your sports update. Your morning sports update is brought to you by Pearl River Resort. What a day. What a weekend coming up to get out to the Dancing Rabbit Golf Club. 2 18-hole championship courses, the Oaks and the Azaleas. Courses that you can play. You can book your tee time online at dancingrabbitgolf.com. Dancing Rabbit, part of Pearl River Resort. We had basketball, 2 games last night involving SEC teams right here in Mississippi. And the home teams went 0-2. Not a good night on the floor. We start in Oxford, where Ole Miss and Alabama played a tight first half. Rebels led by 9. Alabama took a lead into the locker room 32-30, despite hitting just 5 of 23 three-point attempts in the first half. Second half was a different story, as Alabama hit 12 threes in the second half, led by Latrell Wrightsell's 7 threes in the ballgame. They scored 61 second-half points on the way to a 19-point victory. A.J. Storr had a big night for Ole Miss, 27 points for him off of the bench. The Rebels have now lost 6 in a row. They fall to 3-8 in the SEC, 2 games below 500 overall. And in Starkville, closer but a similar result. Despite 31 points last night from Josh Hubbard, Tennessee wins 73-64 over Mississippi State. The Bulldogs are also 11-13. They are also 3-8 in the SEC. Tennessee star Nate Ament had 16. Jacoby Gillespie led the way for the Vols with 18 points. Mississippi State, part of their undoing was at the free throw line. Tennessee made more free throws, 15 of them, than Mississippi State attempted. They were 7 of 13 from the line, despite shooting 41% from the field. Again, Josh Hubbard, 31 points, 13 of 24 shooting the basketball, 4 of 9 for 3. And so it sets the stage for Saturday's game in Oxford at 5:30 when Ole Miss and Mississippi State will meet for the second time this year. The truth of the matter is this is two teams that have had trouble scoring, especially in SEC play. In the first meeting in Starkville, 68-67, Ole Miss won round one. You also had Florida beating Georgia last night and Missouri beating Texas A&M by 1. You want just a little interesting nugget for you, Lance?
Of course.
I got an interesting nugget. In the midweek games this week, Tuesday night and Wednesday night in the SEC, you've always heard how hard it is to win on the road and how important it is to win your home games. The road teams went 6-0 in the 6 midweek games this week.
It's just that time of year, huh?
I think you would be hard-pressed to find another time that had happened, at least recently. A number of players from Ole Miss and one from Mississippi State have been invited to the NFL Draft Combine. We are still a couple of weeks away from the draft. That'll happen in April in Pittsburgh this year. The Combine gets started at the end of this month at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. From Ole Miss, DeJon Stribling, Trey Wallace, Harrison Wallace III if you prefer, tight end Daquan Wright, offensive lineman Diego Pounds, and defensive lineman Xavion Harris have all been invited to Indianapolis for what some call the Underwear Olympics. They'll visit with teams and do bench press and 40-yard dash and shuttle run and other drills and try to make themselves look great. And the fastest player in college football, Brennan Thompson, this past year from Mississippi State, also invited to the NFL Draft Combine. He had a career-high 1,054 receiving yards to go along with 6 touchdowns on 57 catches. He averaged 18.5 yards per catch this past season. So congratulations to all of those invited to the Combine. That's a big deal. A little high school football news for you. Grenada and South Panola, though not at the exact same time, have officially played swapperoo with their high school football coaches. A little less than a month ago, Michael Fair was named the new head coach at South Panola, moving about 45 minutes down the interstate. Actually, up the interstate, I suppose, from Grenada to South Panola. And now Grenada has hired former South Panola head coach Brooks Oakley. At South Panola, Oakley went 35-12, stepped down this past season following the end of the 2025 year after a first-round exit in the 6A playoffs. Michael Fair did a really good job at Grenada. Brooks Oakley going to try to keep that rolling. Prior to becoming the head coach at South Panola, Oakley was the head coach at his high school alma mater, the Senatobia Warriors. So there you go. And then this is just for fun. How about a preseason, postseason projection for college baseball? D1 Baseball has put out its before the season begins bracket, and it has 13 SEC teams in it. Also has Southern Miss in. They've got UCLA as the number 1 overall seed. Southern Miss is a 2 seed, playing in a regional in Tallahassee. Bunch of SEC schools hosting. LSU hosting is the number 2 seed. Georgia hosting. Texas hosting. Tennessee hosting. Mississippi State projected as the number 4 overall seed. And for fun, in this mock bracket, they made Virginia the number 2 seed. That would be Brian O'Connor's former team. Florida a host, Alabama in on the road, Kentucky in on the road, Ole Miss in on the road. They project them in Coastal Carolina for a regional. Coastal Carolina, a team that went to the College World Series a year ago. Vandy in, Arkansas hosting, Texas A&M playing on the road, Auburn hosting. We'll do this again right after Memorial Day. That's your sports update brought to you by Pearl River Resort. We're back with you right after this.
From the Venable Glass Traffic.
From breaking news to bold opinions, Richard dives into the stories shaping Mississippi and the nation. Now back to Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
You know that music means it is time for your morning Mississippi Lottery update. Brought to you by the Mississippi Lottery online, mslottery.com. mslottery.com. There was no Powerball winner last night. Numbers were 6, 20, 33, 40, and 48 with a Powerball of 5. Next Powerball drawing comes your way Saturday night. $146 million in the jackpot with an estimated cash value of $67 million. The Mega Millions jackpot has continued to grow. It's up to $385 million. Friday night is the next jackpot drawing with an estimated cash value of almost $175 million. Mississippi Match 5 up to $240,000. The numbers from last night's drawing were 1, 7, 12, 28, and 32. Feel like we're doing a public service here. We've mentioned it a couple of times. 2 unclaimed $2 million winning tickets are sitting out there somewhere. Maybe at the bottom of a landfill. Maybe in your jacket pocket. Maybe in a couch cushion. One that was purchased in Moss Point, it expires February 22nd. Another that was sold at Mike's Food and Gas in Coldwater, it expires the next day, February 23rd. That's $4 million still waiting to be claimed. Check your tickets today with the official Mississippi Lottery app or visit a Mississippi Lottery retailer and have them scan your ticket. Could make for a pretty fun day. Gulfport man won $10,000 on a ticket, a scratch-off, $30 Millionaire Maker scratch-off. Bought it at Circle K in Gulfport. That is your Mississippi Lottery update. You can find them online at mslottery.com. That's mslottery.com. Mornings of Richard Cross is presented by Community Bank, online at communitybank.net. Community Bank, rooted in our community since 1905. Guest coming up this morning, Davis Pace will join us. He is the president and CEO with the Mississippi Enterprise for Technology, MSET or MSET. Look forward to a visit with Davis. Had an op-ed that was on SuperTalk.fm earlier this week talking about, I don't want to steal his thunder, but partnership between Stennis Space Center and some of the data centers that are on their way or under construction here in Mississippi. Also in the 8 o'clock hour this morning, we will talk some PBM reform. Guy Phillips is owner and operator at Mart Pharmacy in Indianola. David Roberts is the new CEO of the Mississippi Independent Pharmacies Association. This was a huge topic a year ago in the legislature that ultimately died and went nowhere. There is movement this year on PBM reform. Is it good? Does it go far enough? Will it be passed in the Senate? All of those things on the table we'll discuss coming up a little bit later. I mentioned the Senate Majority Leader John Thune is finally completely on board with the Save America Act. Why now? Here's John Thune in his words. Uh-oh.
Should non-citizens be voting in American elections? The answer is no. And the Democrats have taken a hard position that it's okay. Now, the law already prevents that, but if that's true, then why wouldn't we want to put into law something that would require when you go to vote that you prove you are a United States citizen? And that's all the SAVE Act does. And so, you know, they can cry and lament this actually being voted on, but I'd be hard-pressed to have to defend a position that doesn't believe that you have to be an American citizen to vote in an American election.
That was John Thune on Fox News last night. There's been a lot of debate as to whether or not Thune was going to employ one of the filibuster options, the talking filibuster or the silent filibuster, so that you could get to a 50-vote passage instead of having to have 60. We know that the vote is going to be tight. There are some Republican senators who are not entirely sure yet. Will they ultimately come along? Including, I know you're shocked by this, Lisa Murkowski. Elon Musk reposted something on X. Said, please contact the last Save America Act holdouts, including Senators Capito, Murkowski, Tillis, Collins. Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski not lining up with something that most Republicans agree with, overwhelmingly. Shocking there. We got Roger Wicker on this list as well. I would think that Senator Wicker ultimately would support this act. Mitch McConnell, John Thune, he's now a co-sponsor of the bill, so I guess he is finally completely on board. We'll take a time out. The 7 o'clock hour is on the way. We've got your news coming up next from both the SuperTalk Mississippi news team and from Fox News. Then we'll jump in and talk a little bit more about the SAVE Act and what happened yesterday in the House. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
On with the show.
Is back. Holy smokes. On Super Talk, Mississippi.
Mornings with Richard Cross, presented by Community Bank, online at communitybank.net. At Community Bank, we're more than just a place to manage your money. We're your neighbors, your partners, and your trusted financial advisors, dedicated to our customers, committed to your success, and always here when you need us. Community Bank, rooted in our community, member FDIC. Alongside Lance Tolbert, I'm Richard Cross. We would love to hear from you on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395, 601-879-4395. Give your business the edge with gigabit fiber internet from C Spire. Learn more about them and that online at cspire.com. C Spire, customer inspired. This hour of MRC is brought to you by MWG, MWG Employer Services. Running a business is tough, and if you're struggling with HR, benefits, and payroll, you are not alone. That's where MWG Employer Services comes in. They can provide a full range of employer services plus a custom plan that fits you. Give them a call today, 601-206-7966, or go online to MWGEmployerServices.com. CC in Senatobia says, state and Ole Miss baseball teams need to be sure and keep their distance from the basketball teams. We don't need baseball getting infected with that stank, he says.
Those allergies, yeah.
Message here, really wish all the facts concerning the data centers would be given. Short-term pro and con, long-term pro and con. All I've heard is cheerleading. None of the serious long-term concerns have been given a fair consideration. We know majority of jobs are short-term. We know there are concerns with effect on long-term energy costs. There are pros for sure, but the entire picture is not being painted. How many construction workers will be from in-state, et cetera? Some states told them thanks, but no thanks. That message makes me wonder if you are a relatively new listener to the program. I feel like that's something that we have, at the very least, tried to cover as we've talked with energy company executives, we've talked with economic development professionals. And the thing about the data centers, yes, the construction projects are relatively short-term. They tie in deeply to the conversations that we have had for years and years and years about skilled trades needs and the readily available good jobs all over the state of Mississippi in the construction industry, the HVAC industry. Electrical is a subset of construction. Plumbing is a subset of construction. Transportation and logistics. All of those things, while yes, perhaps working on a particular project is a short-term job, but these projects are continuing to pop up, and so there's an opportunity to stack jobs on top of jobs, not to mention the experience and resume building that goes along with that, to put you in a spot to not just have a short-term job, but a long-term career. And then there's the ancillary businesses that have the ability to begin and grow out of the data center infrastructure that is becoming more prevalent across Mississippi. Not to mention the jobs for electrical engineers with these electrical companies that are continuing to work to provide power. And the data scientists and other engineers, computer scientists that go along with some of these jobs. So, yeah, maybe a finite number of jobs in a specific data center once it is fully operational. But there's a lot there. Somebody said, the same texter said, you're talking to folks for most part who benefit by downplaying the cons of the energy cost. Many states report when they have risen sharply. Yeah, but we've talked about that extensively and some of the steps that have been taken to avoid increased energy costs directly related to the data centers. The XAI data center that's going in DeSoto County, XAI is providing its own power in that scenario. We've talked with Entergy extensively about the AWS data center in Madison County that's going in, and the fact that they're having to prepay for the energy that will be used to run that center, in addition to the new infrastructure that's going in. Entergy's made a pretty significant investment. One of the things that Haley Fasackerly pointed out when we talked is people say, oh, we don't want energy costs to go up based on these data centers. Energy costs are going up regardless. And so just because your bill in the last year or over the next 5 years increases some, it is not exclusively or maybe even at all related to the data center. It's just the fact that the cost is going up, period. But I agree with you. It is an important conversation, and it's one that I think we will continue. I just don't think it's one that we have avoided along the way. Thomas says, XAI providing its own power. They won't do that here. Look into the power issue in Memphis. Yes, there have been issues related to and community pushback to some of the power generation in the Memphis area with XAI. But the specific project in DeSoto County that we're talking about, their power generation will be inside the property limits that they've got there. You're talking to, let's see, the thing I'm impressed with in all of this is the big corporations are coming to Mississippi. Everything's positive in my mind. That's from Brent in Caledonia. Yeah, Amazon and XAI putting some roots down in Mississippi, I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think. The House yesterday passed the Save America Act. It has been talked about a lot. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson was on with Sean Hannity last night celebrating passage of the act in the House and letting us know that he has spoken personally with Senate Majority Leader John Thune, and he is optimistic about where this is headed in the Senate.
House Republicans have been working so hard to ensure the integrity of American elections. We had a big win tonight because we passed the Save America Act, and only one Democrat out of all of them joined us in that very common sense piece of legislation. John, all it does is it ensures that if you're going to register to vote, you have to have proof of citizenship, and when you show up to vote, you have to show a photo ID. These are 90% issues in public polling, and 70% of Democrats agree that it should be the law. Only one House Democrat voted for it tonight.
I'm curious for those who are against the photo ID piece. You've seen this popping up online a little bit. How did those people get a photo ID to go along with their vaccine card back in the COVID days? Do you remember that era where there were restaurants where they would not seat you if you didn't have both a vaccine card or a vax passport and an ID to prove that the name on the card was actually you? Man, I bet those poor rural folks that can't photocopy because they don't have a Kinko's, as Kamala Harris told us, I bet they were in a pickle during that time. Can't imagine how they were able to function. The truth of the matter is there is no rational argument against this for Democrats, and so they're just ignoring all of the arguments and screaming, Jim Crow racist! Jim Crow racist! Jim Crow 2.0. There is no rational explanation, with the exception of one. There is one explanation, and that is all. I'm open to your ideas, but as I have looked and looked and looked, the only rational explanation that I can come up with for why Democrats do not want the Save America Act that includes voter ID and proof of citizenship is because they want people who are here illegally to vote in elections. They give lip service to wanting free and fair elections. They don't actually want them because overwhelmingly illegals vote for Democrats. Because Democrats support the programs that allow them to thrive in the United States. When you say it's just American citizens, you're doing something that is a really interesting concept. You are trusting American citizens to make the decisions about who should represent them in Washington, D.C. I know it's a crazy concept, but you're saying, hey, let's let Americans decide who is going to represent America in Congress. Really is a wild concept. We're back with you right after this.
From the Venable with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
The Mississippi Farm Bureau Federation and the Dixie National Rodeo go hand in hand. Today, you can catch middays with Gerard Gibbert at the Trade Mart in Jackson as he teams up with the Mississippi Farm Bureau Federation to grow the future of our state's agriculture at the Sale of Champions. This event is also brought to you by the Mississippi Beef Council. Beef, it's what's for dinner. Glad to be with you this morning. Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi, and happy to welcome our first guest this morning. I think this is the first time that Davis Pace has been on with us. He's the president and CEO with Mississippi Enterprise for Technology, or MSET. Davis, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks, Richard.
Appreciate some of your time. It was an interesting week in the news for those that follow Elon Musk. He had a post on X last week where he was talking about a little bit of a strategy change for SpaceX. And he said, hey, we've been talking about going to Mars, and we're still going to go to Mars, but there's a really tight window in which you can launch craft and get them to Mars, and it takes a long time and it's really expensive. And so while we're still going to do that, we're going to shift our focus to the moon because it's a whole lot easier, and he wants to colonize the moon. And thinks that there are some pretty significant advantages to doing that. Now, if that sounds all like science fiction stuff, I certainly understand. I think I'm done betting against Elon Musk at this point, though.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to approach it. I mean, Elon has shown that anytime he touches something, he figures out ways to make it make a ton of money. Look at Tesla, right? He's taken the electric car, which we have for generations been unable to do anything with, and figured out battery technology, charging technology, and made cars reasonably inexpensive, but also a ton of money for himself and his shareholders. So I wouldn't bet against Elon for anything.
On his way, it appears, to being a trillionaire in the relatively near future, at least on paper. There was kind of an interesting back and forth I saw online as well, where Bill Gates met with Elon Musk, and Musk was talking about the ability of long-haul trucking to be battery-powered as well, and Gates was like, you just can't do it. He's like, well, we are doing it right now with trucks that can go 450 miles without a recharge, and he's like, no, it can't be done. He's like, no, you're missing the point. We are doing this right now. I don't know if that turns into anything at scale, but again, he has taken what really smart people seem to be think is impossible and made it not just possible but reality.
Yeah, and Richard, I mean, just up the road from where you are in North Mississippi, Amplify Cell Technology, the battery company that the Mississippi Development Authority and the state have invested a ton of money in with PACCAR and Daimler. We're betting on that too, right? That we can create batteries that 18-wheelers or long-haul trucks can use. So, I mean, I think that Mr. Gates, it might be a little behind the times on this one.
All right, so I want to dive into your op-ed. It's at supertalk.fm. If you've not read that, it is worth a read. Certainly some interesting things to think about. But before we do that, tell me a little bit more about MSET, the Mississippi Enterprise for Technology.
Sure. We're a state-chartered public-private partnership between the Mississippi Development Authority, NASA Stennis Space Center, and our 4 research universities. So for the folks that don't know, that's Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Jackson State, and USM. And our job is to go to interface between industry and the federal assets that exist in the state. Now, what are federal assets? That can be test ranges at Stennis Space Center. That can be federally funded research projects at universities. And it can also just be physical things like the installations at Columbus Air Force Base or Keesler Air Force Base, or ERDIC, which is the largest, the Army's largest research and development center in the country. So we've got a really interesting mission, and the goal is to pair those that research or that are those federal assets with industry. So what industry can do is hopefully create jobs in Mississippi.
There's an interesting concept for a lot of these advanced technology companies that are doing cutting edge stuff. So much of their business, if you will, right now is tied to money that comes from the federal government for research projects, for development, for R&D stuff, for applications that are maybe specific to the Department of Defense. What's the long-term plan for some of these companies beyond just federal dollars to be able to be scalable, to make money within the private sector or industry, as you called it, beyond just, oh, yeah, we're going to continue to grow because the feds are going to keep buying whatever it is that we're selling?
Ideally, Richard, and that's a really good question. Ideally,
that was
these
a long
guys
pause
are
there.
these companies. Well, no, I mean, I'm trying to think of the right way to describe it, but the short answer is the gold standard for these companies is dual-use technology, right? Mm-hmm. Technology that they can sell to the industry, to the government, or that they can sell to consumers.
Okay.
And majority of DoD contractors, there's not a lot of consumer applications for warheads or for fighter jets, right? But there are other tools and technologies, whether it's software or some components that can be used by your average Joe off the shelf. But in a lot of cases, if you look at companies like Palantir, which we hear a lot about Palantir,
right.
Palantir is just a government contractor. They were started as a government contractor. They're going to be a government contractor. And in some cases, that's okay. But it's not okay if suddenly the government decides to not fund their project anymore.
Sure.
I'm not sure that there's a good answer other than if the government doesn't fund your project anymore and you don't have a dual-use technology, then you're just kind of out of luck.
So in this column that you wrote, the op-ed that is there again at supertalk.fm, you talk about a partnership between Mississippi, I'm using that very loosely, but kind of Mississippi and the technology firms especially that are associated with Stennis and are on the Gulf Coast, and some of what Elon Musk in particular is talking about with regard to getting to the moon. What are we talking about?
Well, Richard, right now we're hearing a ton of conversation about data centers. I heard you talking about it before I got on. There's a lot of questions about energy accessibility for data centers. There's questions about cooling, so the use of water, land usage, increasing rates on ratepayers for utilities. Well, what Elon is proposing, it's not just going to the moon, which is great, and that's something that he's going to do, but it's also putting these data centers physically in space. Not some of them will be, on the moon, but majority of them will be in orbit. So the reason that that's interesting is it solves a lot of those questions that we were asking earlier, about access to energy, access to people, access to land. So if you can put it in space, the cooling of just space in general, space is cold, so you don't have to cool the data center, right? We have almost infinite power through solar power with the sun whenever you're in outer space. And there's no land problems because you don't have to worry about taking up, someone's, former farm in Canton or in South Haven whenever you're putting these data centers in space. That's interesting for Stennis because to be able to get these data centers in space, you've got to get them off the ground, right? You've got to launch them. And we have at Stennis Space Center and in Mississippi a rich heritage of getting rockets into outer space. And whether that's the Apollo program, whether that is the Mercury, whether that is the shuttle program, and now Artemis, the most recent launch program. That's just on the NASA side. In the past 10 years, it's maybe actually less than 10 years, what's been really exciting about Stennis is that private companies are coming to Stennis and using the know-how, the workforce, and the infrastructure to design and to iterate on their own vehicles, their own launch vehicles. We hear a lot about Stennis testing engines, but the reality is they're testing stages. They're testing the entire vehicle, in some cases, a whole rocket. Yeah. So if we can leverage that into, getting a foothold in helping these companies get their data centers in space, then we have a really awesome opportunity to be a critical player in the next big conversation about the data race with China.
When we talk about the construction of a data center on the moon, which, by the way, when you say that out loud, you're like, wait, what did I just say? Construction of a data center on the moon. All right, so we've got images from the 60s of one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind, where we plant a flag. It didn't appear as if there was a room for a whole lot of extra luggage on the space shuttle. I think about the scale of construction. Example in Madison, for example, with the AWS facility. Is that what we're talking about? Is building that type, or is there some sort of other space-age construction components that we're looking at? I mean, are we literally going to haul lumber and conduit and nuts and bolts and all of those things on a bunch of space vehicles to the moon?
Yes and no, right? Whenever Elon was talking about going to Mart. Okay, go ahead.
I just asked a question, and then I didn't give you time to answer it. We got a break right here. Let's pick that up on the other side. How do you actually build a massive facility on the moon, and who are the people that are going to go to work on that construction project? We'll do that with Davis Pace on the other side of this timeout. The Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
All right, I think we're going to have to use our big brains here for a second. So I asked Davis Pace a question before the break. He is president and CEO at Mississippi Enterprise for Technology. He wrote an op-ed that is available for free for you at supertalk.fm, and the whole premise is positioning some of the technology companies that are tied to Stennis Space Center, that are in Jackson County, that are along the Mississippi Gulf Coast, for kind of the next level ideas that Elon Musk and others seem to have. And we were talking about a data center on the moon that Elon Musk has talked about. And he's talked about using solar power, to offset energy costs, and having orbital satellites floating around in space that would function as data centers. And so I was asking but how do you build it question before the break. So let's just frame this for a second, because I may have let my mind go wild during the break. So we have talked about not only the need, but the availability through our community college system for jobs, preparing people for jobs in the skills and trades segment. So I'm thinking about, recent Mississippi Gulf Coast and Hines graduates who have certificates and now training in welding and precision machining and electrical technology, and recent construction graduates from North Mississippi Community College that now have to have some sort of astronaut training so that they can get on a rocket and go to the moon, along with the lumber and the steel and all of the materials necessary to build a data center in space. I readily admit, Davis, that I do not have the mind of Elon Musk, but this is a really fascinating proposition to me. Help me out here.
Well, just like we said earlier, Richard, don't bet against the guy. So the simple answer is 3D printing. We're going to 3D print a lot of these things that are on, regardless of what we're building on other planets, whether it's data centers, whether it's housing, whether it's, energy, whatever. We're going to be 3D printing them. There will be instances where we're not 3D printing everything, but our 3D printing technology has gotten so advanced that it'll blow your mind if you see it. I'll give you a really quick example of that. So one of the companies that's in a space center is called Relativity Space. Relativity, they're when they came into market, their big thing was they're going to 3D print their rockets. They're going to 3D print them, like every nut, every bolt, every valve, and then the actual vehicle itself, right? And I went to California a couple of years ago to see their production facility, where I'm here and they're 3D printing everything. And I don't know how much you know about 3D printing, Richard, but whenever I imagine 3D printing, what you do is you start laying something down and you build up and you kind of build up this way as you build as you build whatever the thing is you're building. Well, what Relativity had done, and this was 4 years ago, right? And the technology advanced even more since then. To do that, you're laying something down. Well, they had turned their 3D printers up vertically, and they were 3D printing and moving away. So they were 3D printing out. And so horizontally, right? So they're 3D printing left and right instead of up and down. That to me just is a quick example of how advanced we have gotten. All you have to have is it's almost like powder. You're taking powder and then the machines to build it. But whatever we build on other planets, the majority of it's going to be built by 3D printers. Now, I would love to get Mississippians in space. There's a woman in Oxford, Mississippi, at the university at the law school. She runs the Air and Space Law Center. What she likes to say all the time about the space economy, is that space needs more than engineers. Space is going to need lawyers. Space is going to need accountants. Space is going to need technicians. Space is going to need janitors. We're going to run the gamut to have an economy that actually feels to be able to have an actual robust space economy. So,
do you,
Michelle Hand?
Do you think there will be a need for a morning radio show in space?
I guarantee you there will.
Just thinking out loud here.
Have you been thinking about it? Heading out decamping?
I need to get my kids finished with get them to college first. I want to be around for games and all of those things, but might do a 6-month stint if my wife could go along.
Well, I think the first tranche of folks that probably go to Mars probably won't be coming home. So I don't think you want to be on that trip, but maybe the next one. No, but Richard, I think the really interesting thing about this too is why is putting these data centers in space important? And it's because it's not just the cooling costs. It's not just the energy costs. It's actually, we're in a Cold War with China. We've said this, we've been talking about this for years, particularly since COVID, when China was throttling our access to PPE and generic drugs. And then we started hearing about semiconductors, the things that make your phone and every other device in your home turn on. And the Chinese had a chokehold on that. And what we don't want that to happen, what we don't want to happen is the Chinese to have a similar chokehold or enough leverage in data that they have with APIs and critical minerals and all the and semiconductors. Because just like what we hear about semiconductors, if you turn on your phone, you have to have a semiconductor. Data is the same way. Our economy, our daily lives live on data. Whenever you're doom scrolling on your phone through Twitter or X or Instagram or Facebook, that's data moving from somewhere to your phone. Whenever you're making phone calls on your phone, when you're text messaging, banking, all of our financial systems are built on data. So if the Chinese, look, they're not at the point where they can control this today, but if the Chinese get to a point where they have leverage over us and we have dependence on them for some portion of that, we have a huge problem. So American companies right now need to be out ahead trying to build these types of data centers. And it's not just limited to data centers. We can have whole other conversations about other supply chain issues. But with data centers, we've got to make sure that American companies are leading the way and are winning that race, as opposed to these Chinese governments-backed space companies and data center companies.
You know, they're, I guess, lighthearted first. Got a message that said, you may have seen the video of the TVA line worker that was suspended from the skid of the helicopter working on the big transmission line, and everybody was just blown away by that. He said, can you imagine seeing somebody doing that working on a space station on the moon? Talk about high level. That, and then I was thinking,
bad day at work.
Yeah, or a great day. I'm sure the view would be good. And then you think about people that work offshore. We've always heard, hey, that's a great way for people to make a living and make a lot of money. I can't imagine what it would be like if you're working in space. But on a slightly more serious note, when you talk about technological advances, I think there is technology already in place that is kind of beyond our level to comprehend. In terms of computing power, we hear about quantum computing, which just takes it to a speed that is almost, well, I mean, it's what I just said. Like, you almost can't even comprehend what some of this is. And then as you talk about data centers, one of the phrases that I feel like is a more new phrase that people are beginning to see is compute power. Elon Musk has used that phrase a lot, and it's the amount of power needed to run these computers at scale, really more than anything that keeps up with the power needs.
Well, and Richard, really cool thing about Mississippi, and this is something that when I go visit my friends in D.C. or L.A. or San Francisco for work, what I like to tell them is Mississippi has been a leader in supercomputing for a generation. Mississippi State, again, the Engineering Research and Development Command in Vicksburg and Stennis Space Center, between the three of them, they already have like the third or fourth most supercomputing power in the country, and it all lives in Mississippi. So we have already been a leader in this, and it's just become in vogue because of the rise of these data centers. But that's an awesome question, because you're right. We have to have this supercomputing power to be able to do this. Now, the majority of that supercomputing power at ERDIC or at Mississippi State or at Stennis is really more towards research and not, processing financial payments or whatever else that we'd be using on a day-to-day basis. But we know how to use it. We know how to power it. We know how to staff it. We know how to build the infrastructure to support it. So, that we are actually well positioned. It's just like the thing with the data centers in space. We're well positioned to lead in the data processing and supercomputing arms race that's happening.
Davis, this has been a wildly fascinating conversation, and I appreciate your time this morning. I don't even know if I've asked good questions, but there's so much that's hard to understand in this. Let's try and put a bow on it here. Going back to the premise of what you wrote, Mississippi, in your mind, I think, is in a position to take advantage of some of the technological advances. Where do we go from here?
That's a really good question. And I think that is the most important question. We need to double down on the investments and the approach that Governor Reeves and Bill Cork and our university systems have made on data centers and on the infrastructure necessary. I think you had Bill on last week sometime.
Yeah.
And whenever Bill talks, he talks about laying the groundwork, laying the foundation so that companies can quickly get it. We as a state, when it's that side, we need to make sure that we have the product to sell. We need to make sure we have places for these companies to come and work. But then just as important, we need to work with our universities and our community college programs to make sure we have the people that are ready to go work for them tomorrow.
Fascinating conversation. Let's continue it in the future. Davis, thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Richard.
Davis Pace with the Mississippi Enterprise for Technology.
From the Venable Glass.
Let's go. Waking up the Magnolia State. Mornings with Richard Cross.
That's what it's here for.
Super Talk, Mississippi.
Mornings with Richard Cross, presented by Community Bank, online at communitybank.net, rooted in our community. What a wildly fascinating conversation with Davis Pace from MSET. That is not a conversation that we can have in the 6 o'clock hour. We got to be 2.5, 3 cups of coffee in, and maybe a biscuit or two to be awake enough and have our brains stretch enough to really wrap our heads around some of the ideas that Davis is talking about. But there are a couple of things that stand out to me. We'll get to some of your messages on the C Spire text line in just a moment. There is a level of big picture thinking that is happening with some of the leaders at the state level in Mississippi that I don't believe is how most of us think about things on a day-to-day basis. When we think about economic development, when we think about job growth, we're doing it in a very practical, linear way, right? We need companies to come to Mississippi who build things, and we need trained people who can go into those jobs, who know how to work in engineering, who know how to work in advanced manufacturing, who know how to weld, who know how to lay pipe, who know how to do electrical work, and all of those things. Very practical. Like when I hear about jobs that are available in the construction industry, I'm thinking about building houses and building businesses and laying infrastructure. When you take a wider range view, and I think part of it is most of us, not all of us, but when I say most of us, I'm including myself, I don't know that we have a good enough understanding of what some of the more technologically advanced companies, especially on the Gulf Coast, but really all over the state, but especially on the Gulf Coast, what they do and what they envision and what they are preparing for in the future. You think about the job that Bill Cork has as the executive director of MDA. And I think I can call Bill a friend. I think he's done a really good job. I think he works really hard and has the best interest of Mississippi at heart. He is working at the executive director of MDA is appointed by the governor, and so he is working kind of at the behest of Tate Reeves with a mandate to bring new jobs and bring development opportunities to Mississippi to position the overall state for a place where more people can make more money. The thing that, like, you can make this as complicated as you want to or as simple as you want to, but the thing that Tate Reeves has said, I've heard him say it in I don't know how many roundtable or interview settings, that his goal is to raise the standard of income for Mississippians across the state, with the idea that even if it's not, air quotes, get rich money, if you can get the average annual income, the average household income up into that $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year range, as opposed to hovering just above the poverty line, then a lot of the issues, the problems that Mississippi has on a lot of fronts will take care of themselves. Because when the only thing you are focused on is making a rent payment or making a mortgage payment or making sure that you got enough food to put on the table to feed your family, you don't have the ability to think big picture and long term. But when some of those things are not, you're worried every single day about how you're just going to put enough food on the table or just how you're going to make the ends meet, then you're able to take some more significant or at least incremental steps forward in all the areas that we struggle as a state. But there are people that are thinking well beyond that and who are developing technologies that are well beyond that are giving Mississippi a chance not just to be a place where, oh, yeah, you can come and you can make a good livable wage and it's a great place to live, but there's some really forward-thinking, advanced stuff out here that potentially could position Mississippi for the next 100 years, the next 200 years, where maybe the story of our state evolves quite differently than it has for the last 250 years. C-Spire text line, I would question the across the state part of your statement. Economic development is being focused on only a few favored areas. It's something that always comes up, right? I mean, we hear conversations about the Delta. We hear conversations about Southwest Mississippi. Why are there not projects there? Is there a willingness? And is there a workforce? Because I think those questions have to be answered. You can't just take a development project and say, hey, we've got land, here you go. Do you have people that want to work and are willing to work? And do you have local governments that are willing to band together to come up with the investment that is needed locally to make some of these projects a reality? Those questions have to be answered in the affirmative.
What is it? What's going on?
Mornings with Richard Cross.
It is what it is.
Yes, it is.
SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Pleasure to be with you on this Thursday morning, the 12th of February. This hour of Mornings with Richard Cross, well, every day is brought to you and presented by Community Bank, online at communitybank.net. Community Bank, rooted in our community. Alongside Lance Tolbert, I'm Richard Cross. Some of your messages coming in on the C-Spire text line, 601-879-4395. Later in this half hour, we will we'll check in El Paso, where the shut down airspace story yesterday took a wild couple of twists. What initially was said was going to be 10 days turned out to just be a few hours. Were mistakes made? Clearly, and communication was not very good in that either. But right now, we will switch gears entirely. This is a conversation that was very much on the forefront a year ago during the legislative session. It's kind of died down, at least in the public forum, but not for the people that are affected most by it. And we're talking about pharmacy benefit managers and a lot of things related to the pharmaceutical industry. Guy Phillips joins us. He's the owner and operator at Mart Pharmacy in Indianola. He is a board member with the Mississippi Independent Pharmacies Association. And David Roberts is the new CEO at MIPA. Gentlemen, good morning to both of you.
Good morning, Richard.
I appreciate the time coming in. David, you are new in this role, though not unfamiliar with the issues that are going here. Welcome aboard. I think the road in front is steep and winding a little bit. Perhaps there's a little bit of progress.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Richard, for the opportunity to be with you this morning and have an opportunity to come on and talk about the issue at hand. Just a little bit of background about MIPA, the Mississippi Independent Pharmacies Association. We were founded in 2002, and we serve as the voice for independent pharmacies across our state. And Richard, if you take a snapshot of our local independent pharmacies, they number about a little over 300 across Mississippi, many in rural areas of Mississippi. They generate about $1.7 billion in annual sales and employ a little over 4,000 Mississippians. And on average, they fill about 21 million prescriptions last year. And so they're an integral part of the fabric of local communities. They are local, they're trusted, they are accessible, and they are having some challenges. If you go back and look over since 2021, there have been 54 pharmacies that have closed. Including Baldwin L&L Pharmacy in Baldwin, Mississippi, just last week. And that's another Mississippi town that unfortunately has lost a healthcare provider and a small business that has served families for generations in that community. And, Richard, when a pharmacy, a local independent pharmacy closes, it's not just a storefront that's going dark. It's a grandmother now that is being challenged and tasked to having to travel a large distance, sometimes 40 miles or more for insulin. It's a parent at the end of the day, this working parent that's trying to get antibiotics after work for their children. And then a senior that's lost one of their healthcare providers that intricately knows their medication and their history. And so this is just not sustainable for Mississippi families, and we are working very hard at the state capitol again this year to try to reconcile that for these communities and for these local independent pharmacists.
Guy, you've had a front row seat for this as an owner and operator of an independent pharmacy, but also as a board member and someone who is advocating for change. We've heard all kinds of buzz phrases, and I think sometimes we know what they mean and sometimes we don't. We hear about spread pricing and reimbursements and lots of other things like that. The House has taken up this measure in a fairly substantial way this year and has passed a PBM reform package, I guess would maybe be the right way to say it. It's headed toward the Senate. Where are we, and what do you see in the bill specifically this year that has gotten some traction, maybe in a way that it didn't a year ago?
Well, I'm assuming we're talking about House Bill 1665 that currently is in the works. Yeah. I feel like that we've made some great progress with that bill. Now, it's not perfect, and we were talking about that earlier today. It's a process. I'm a pharmacist. I don't envy those guys trying to work through that process at the Capitol and get this done. It's a complicated issue, and there's some good things that have been done for pharmacy and to rein in, I guess would be a good word, for the PBMs and their tactics and all the things, the games they're playing. So yeah, it's not there yet. I feel like there's 2 or 3 points in there that really we need to deal with. And we can go into those details. I guess we have time for that if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's some things in there that we see that needs to be addressed before it gets to the finish line.
And before we dive into that, I'd love for you, if you don't mind, to kind of speak to those relationships that David was talking about. I live in Oxford. Sure. It's still a relatively small town in the big scheme of things, but there are lots of pharmacy options here, and yet for the entire time that I've lived here, we have used local independent pharmacies because of the relationships that exist. Yeah. Is that what stands out for you in terms of relationships that you build over time with your customers?
Sure. We were just talking about that, and you'll appreciate this, I believe. So I got my start in Hollandale, Mississippi, is where I started. Yeah. So I was there for 10 years, and I still have a drugstore there. And I'm sure you're familiar with Hollandale. It's a small town, rural town in Mississippi that we hold the line there. The hospital closed, the big clinic closed. We have a few providers and stuff, but it's a community that it needs our drugstore, and we provide services to people there that would have to travel a long way if we weren't there. So those kind of things, and the relationships. I've been at this 37 years in May. That's hard to believe. And just past week, one of my best friends, he lost his wife to cancer, so we're there for him. We're there for him. Our kids grew up together, things like that. So we're in the community. We're there every day. Get up every morning, and we're there with them. We're there fighting through this with them, and we're holding the line, trying to be sure that they get what they need for their health, and not get lost in this corporate.
It's a behemoth. I mean, it is a corporate behemoth that is absolutely massive, and there's tons of red tape. David, let me ask you this: it's easy to get wrapped up in the emotional stories, like Guy was just talking about a second ago, like the conversations that we had a year ago about somebody that needs a cancer medication, and the pharmacist has to say, I can't fill this for you because I'm going to lose, $300, $400, $500 on filling this prescription, and I can't keep my door. So it's easy to get wrapped up in the emotional stories of that, but I don't know that that's what's going to move the needle for legislators. What's the business argument for this? We've got to get reform in place. We've got to make this happen, whether it's at the state level or at the federal level, where it does seem the conversation is picking up. And one of the people kind of leading the charge on that is Mart Cuban, of all people.
Yeah, I think, we, our local independent pharmacists are business owners. They are running a business, and they are being challenged by the PBMs in that environment. And I think, as Guy indicated, House Bill 1665, I think, is a good start. There are some components to that bill that will address some of the challenges that these local pharmacies as business owners are facing. The bill will put some limits on PBMs on spread pricing, on charging more than they pay the pharmacies. It also addresses patient steering, where PBMs will not be able to push patients away from their local pharmacy. And then there's some reimbursement language there that really we're trying to get for our local independent pharmacists a fair or level playing field, if you will, for their reimbursements there. And then it also addresses some clean claims, requiring some prompt payment on claims that are being filed there. So, and I think from a business standpoint as well, it's going to also increase some transparency and accountability, and I think that's very much needed. One of the concerns that we do see, and Guy can talk a little bit more about this, is in the bill currently, it would move the regulatory and enforcement piece of the PBM from under the Board of Pharmacy over to the Insurance Commissioner. And I think we do have some concerns about that. But all in all, I think it is a good start. It's a good start on a bill that we do look forward to continuing our work with the Senate, as it has now been transmitted over there and awaiting referral to committee. And so we still have a ways to go, but we're excited about where we are currently in the process.
Let's pick the conversation up there on the other side of this break. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi. My guests are Guy Phillips. He's an independent pharmacy owner in here in Mississippi, and also a board member, and Dave Roberts, the CEO with MIPA.
From the Venable Glass Trap.
With Richard Cross.
Wake up.
Get going.
Wake up. All right.
Super Talk, Mississippi. Wake up.
Good to be with you. We welcome your comments and your questions on the C Spire text line at 601-879-4395. 601-879-4395. Visiting with David Roberts. He is Chief Executive Officer, relatively new in that role with the Mississippi Independent Pharmacies Association. And Guy Phillips, who's a board member with MIPA and owner and operator of Magic Mart Pharmacy. We get a message here, and I'm going to try to kind of roll Thomas's question into a statement and see if we can kind of have an open conversation about this. He asked, generally speaking, about the role of government in passing protectionist legislation for specifically independent pharmacies in this case. And while I think that's a fair question, I do think we have to look at monopolies and we have to look at businesses being protected and there being a level playing field. When we talk about spread pricing in particular, where maybe a big pharmacy that has a PBM or a PBM that has a pharmacy is buying large quantities of a medicine, maybe they get a better price than an independent pharmacy that's only filling a few prescriptions of that in a given week or a given month. Is that part of what we're talking about in spread pricing, where the market is dictating what big groups pay compared to small groups, or am I completely off base on that?
Richard, I'll try to speak to that if I can. I appreciate the question. Spread pricing is more of something that a PBM uses to insert themselves in the process of charging the carrier, the insurance carrier that they work for, way more than they pay the pharmacy. So their PBM, in my opinion, should be a administrator of claims, and they should stay out of the actual product part. They've injected themselves into the product part, and they make profit from that, plain and simple. So they charge the carrier a certain amount, and then they pay the pharmacy way less, and they take that spread, and that's their profit. They never buy a product. They never handle a product. They never dispense a product. But they get a large portion of the money available between what they're, charging the carrier and what they're paying the pharmacy.
So
that's what spread pricing is.
They're a middleman that takes a bigger cut or more than their fair share?
Absolutely, yeah. But when you say middleman, they are in the middle, but they're in the middle just strictly self-serving. They're not there to do anything except try to inject themselves in this in a way that produces profits for them.
Sure. Well, and David, one of the questions that I've had for a long time here is, what's the real need for a PBM? Why is there a need for a middleman as opposed to a drug company working directly with pharmacies? And I've gotten various answers about, well, there's a lot of paperwork that has to be done, and there's a lot of, red tape that has to be crossed. What is your answer to that? What role does a PBM play? Is there a beneficial role for a pharmacy benefit manager?
Well, Richard, great question, and one I think Guy can probably get a little more detail to. But I think the origination of PBMs as they were formed and their role has drastically changed over the years. I think Guy can probably give you a little more detail on that from the front lines, but being there, a pharmacist there in his community.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, so PBMs started as again, to administer claims, to verify eligibility, to help insurance carriers handle all those tasks that needed doing. And that was what they were created for. They were never created to be involved in the ways they're being involved in every aspect of the prescription, the pharmacy business. So, yeah, there was a time when possibly their role was helpful, but that has really grown way out of proportion to where it needs to be, in my opinion. They're way too involved in every aspect of it, and it's basically just profit-driven, monopoly-driven. So we started this, I guess, 10, 15 years ago when Medicare. When we started with Medicare, and I think there was about 80 different PBMs at that time, and ideas that would be competitive, it would be great. And now I think we're down to less than 12. And there's
and then 3 or 4 massive PBMs, right?
Yeah, so you got 3 or 4 that dictate about 80% they control 80% of the prescriptions, 80% of that version of healthcare. So it didn't work out like they planned.
Yeah. Where does Trump RX fit into this entire conversation? Guy, I saw you take a deep breath when I asked that. The president has had these big sweeping conversations about we've got to make prescriptions more affordable for Americans. And he said, we're going to go with favored nations pricing, where if they're selling drugs to country X, and that's the lowest price that it's being sold globally, that's what they're going to be sold to the American public for. Is this something that's practical? Is it something that would make a difference in this PBM conversation?
Well, I believe that's going to go back to manufacturers, so that's a whole other piece of the puzzle. And it's
so just to muddy the waters a bit more.
Yeah. So now you have manufacturers that they're involved in this, and they're kind of involved with the PBMs on rebates and pricing schemes and so forth. So all of that ends up in higher prices, in inflated prices for prescription medicines. So I think the idea is great that we try to figure out some kind of way to regulate that, or to at least not let it run amok like it has in the last 5 years. I hesitate to say that what he's doing right now, and I hesitate to say that's going to work. I don't think it will.
David, we got about 3 minutes left, and I don't know that you can put a bow on this topic in 3 minutes, but I think we can all agree that this is a complicated issue, or at least for me it has been. As we've tried to talk about this, I've learned as much as I can about PBMs, and I've tried to listen to different viewpoints from the independent pharmacies, from big business, from economic developers, and try to understand what everybody's place is. So it's a complicated issue. Give me a simple solution for a complicated issue. What would be the solution at its most simple form that the Mississippi legislature could do that would be most helpful for independent pharmacists?
Well, thank you again, Richard, for the opportunity to be with you this morning. And I would say, yes, it is a very complicated issue, but one that has to have some resolution to quickly. We continue to see these local independent pharmacies being challenged by the practices of PBMs, and it is they are a fabric. The independent pharmacists are a fabric of the local communities, and so we need to have a level playing field for these independent pharmacies across Mississippi to be able to operate, to be able to serve their communities, to be able to continue to be the trusted local resource for their families there in those communities that they've served for generations. For when a local independent pharmacy closes in a rural area, there goes a very critically important component to health care in that community. And we would just urge lawmakers to continue to work towards a good solution. We think 1665 is a good start. We look forward to working with the Senate as this bill now has over in that chamber and awaiting referral. But at the end of the day, our independent pharmacies play an incredibly important role in the delivery of health care in our communities.
Guy, if I said give me two things that if they could put into practice legislatively that would make a difference for independent pharmacists, what are the two biggest things?
Address the reimbursement issues from the PBMs.
In terms of time or dollar amount?
Dollar amount.
Okay.
That's number one. And get as much as possible control. What's the word I'm looking for? The steering part of it, where our patients that we've served for 30 years, all of a sudden, if they join a certain plan, they can't use our pharmacy anymore. Yeah. They have to go to a affiliate pharmacy. Those are two of the biggest issues that I see at my level.
So you got to give patients the option, and you've got to make sure that independent pharmacies are being compensated in the same way that the big pharmacies are.
Sure. Perfect.
All right. That feels like a good starting point. We'll see if we can get to the finish line on this. David, Guy, I thank you both for your time this morning and wish you all the best.
Thank you, Richard.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Mornings with Richard Cross. We will roll on after this with you. C Spire text line open, 601-879-42 4395. We got a lot left in just a half an hour remaining. We're back on MRC after this.
In the car, at home, or at work, it's always free to listen to SuperTalk Mississippi and Mornings with Richard Cross.
Good to be with you this morning. Mornings of Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi. I appreciate our last guest coming on, Guy Phillips from Magic Mart Pharmacy in Indianola. Talked about the pharmacy, the drugstore that he still owns in, trying to say Belzona, Hollandale as well. And David Roberts from the Independent Pharmacies Association. I've thought a lot about this issue. I'm just a radio host, right? And so my understanding of minutia as it pertains to reimbursement policies with regard to independent pharmacies is limited. My wife was a pharmacist. I've kind of been in that arena, talked to a lot of people, and worked really, really hard over the course of the last year to understand this issue. Our legislature is made up of people with all different kinds of backgrounds. Yes, you've got doctors. You have a lot of lawyers. You've got some accountants. You've got former school teachers. May have a coach or two in there. You've got some engineers, I think. A lot of different backgrounds in the legislature. But if you pretend that all of our legislators on the House side or the Senate side are subject area experts in every single bill that comes across the dais, you are kidding yourself. And here's the point that I'm trying to make. The PBM issue, the pharmacy benefit manager issue, PBMs as a middleman, as a broker, as a controlling entity with outsized power, with conversations about spread pricing and clawbacks and patient steering and payment timelines is a very nuanced and complicated issue. And there are people that think it's good, and there are people that think it's bad. I believe, ultimately, if the Independent Pharmacist Association, if independent pharmacy owners, and I am not by any stretch of the imagination downplaying the significance of this issue to those people, if you want the legislature to get this across the finish line, it's got to be boiled down to a bite-sized, easily understandable problem with a solution. You got to say, this is the problem, and yes, I know it's complicated, but let me simplify it for you. Here's the problem. Our patients cannot use the pharmacy that they want to use because this middleman, these PBMs, are pointing them and saying, no, you have to go use this pharmacy. And our providers, the pharmacists, the pharmacies themselves, are not being fairly treated. They are not getting the same level of reimbursement that a big PBM-controlled pharmacy is getting. The PBMs are not following through and paying them what they say they are going to pay. That's the problem. We need to write legislation that fixes that problem. And there may be 50 problems, but I don't know that you get a bill that's complicated enough and technical enough that fixes all 50 problems. And so if there are 2 or 3 or 4 key issues that the independent pharmacists can lock in on and get some relief from so that they can steady themselves, so that they can stand on their own 2 feet, so that they can remain the important entity, and I think most would agree that independent pharmacies are an important entity, especially in our smaller towns, then I think you got something that you can kind of wrap your arms around a little bit and maybe even generate more public support for. Again, I really, really do appreciate both David and Guy coming in and talking more about this position. And the House has made some progress. We were talking about House Bill 1665. The key provisions in that are PBMs have to reimburse pharmacies at least their acquisition costs for the drugs. You can't tell a pharmacy that they have to sell a drug for less than you're willing to reimburse them for it. To prohibit clawbacks, which means retroactively the PBMs can say, oh, we're going to pay you less than we say we're going to pay you. Said we're going to pay you. A ban on spread pricing that requires PBMs not to reimburse pharmacies less than their affiliated pharmacies for the same drug. Bad example, but I'll use it because it's simple. Obviously, it's an over-the-counter drug, but if Big Pharmacy A sells Tylenol to a consumer as a prescription, and it costs them 50 cents to get it, and they sell it for $1, well, you can't charge a small pharmacy 75 cents for what you sold the Tylenol to the big pharmacy for 50 cents. Prohibits patient steering, sets deadlines on payments, provides an appeals process, and then moves the regulation from the Board of Pharmacy to the insurance commissioner. And put some anti-retaliation efforts in there as well. That's what's in the legislation right now that the House has passed and is sent to the Senate. We'll see where the Senate goes with it. Now, a potential issue, and Thomas brought this up when he mentioned protectionism. Let's pick a different industry so it doesn't feel like we're picking on pharmacies. Lance, you are a tire wholesaler and distributor. All right? And I have 50 tire stores across 10 states, 5 states, whatever. Doesn't matter. And JT Mitchell, our good friend from the news department, has 1 tire store and is thinking about opening a second one. I buy tires from you on a 3 times a week basis, and based on a decade of sales orders, you know that I'm going to buy 10,000 tires from you in a calendar year. JT orders tires once a week, keeps a small amount in stock, and the number of his orders vary because his customer base is smaller. And JT's probably over the course of the year going to buy about 600 tires from you. I feel like I might, because you know that I'm going to buy regularly, I'm going to buy over and over and over, that I might get a better price from you for the tires that I buy to sell than JT's going to get. Is that unreasonable for me to think that I might get a better price than JT's going to get just because I'm doing so much volume with so much regularity?
No, I mean, that's natural. That's the way it works in most big purchases versus little purchases. You're going to get a better deal to buy more volume. So, yeah, I mean, that's going to work out, I think, across most industries.
If I get a T-shirt shop to print me up 1 T-shirt for me to wear or for me to sell somebody else versus an order of 1,000 T-shirts, I'm probably going to get a better price on a per T-shirt basis for the 1,000 than I am for the 1. And again, I'm just thinking out loud here. I'm not saying that this is right or wrong. I'm just wondering if that is part of the issue in terms of the pricing and the way it's structured. Paul in Hernando says get rid of PBMs. They're the worst thing to happen to pharmacy in the last 20 years. Been there, done that. I'm a retired pharmacist. Okay. Tim in Cleveland says, do we really need PBMs in the first place? There are a lot of people that argue, no, we don't. Thomas says, maybe we'll see Dollar General pharmacies like the old Fred's pharmacies. Yeah, Fred's pharmacies were like a hybrid, weren't they? Yeah. I mean, they were corporate in nature, but they felt more like a local and independent. Somebody points this out, says it's just tough because it affects the sick and the old and people who typically have no or fewer options.
Well, and also, I mean, most of these companies, such as, let's just say Optum RX, which is a United Health Group company, that's a global company. All right, so, yeah, I mean, most of the PBMs are designed to service and serve the American consumer, but you also are dealing with a healthcare company that's global. So, I mean, if we look at what we're paying, so, I mean, I think it's very complicated to get down to the bottom of how profit is derived and, where the revenue is coming from. And sure, America pays more for drugs than just about anybody else on the planet. Now, why is really the great question.
Maybe because we can and are willing to.
I think that's part of it, yes, sir.
And maybe you got to fix that. One more message, C-Spire text line. No guy personally, he's as plugged in as it gets and has a true desire to help and keep serving these communities. These PBMs have truly created a muck that at the end of the day isn't fair to the patient, even though it's painted to be for them. And maybe that's where the focus has to be. Maybe it's not that we're supposed to feel sorry and say, oh, we need to create legislation to help these business owners, although we should be helping the business owners. Maybe it's the patient. Maybe that's what resonates with our legislators to say, we got to fix this for the patient, for the end user.
From the Venerable.
Reaching across the state and across the aisle. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Whatever brought you and me cannot be forgotten. I have been around the world, looking for that.
Lot to do, not much time to do it in the final 6 minutes that we are with you this morning on Mornings with Richard Cross here on SuperTalk, Mississippi. I'm going to put this at the front of the list. If you're looking for a new or previously owned vehicle, Belk Ford and Oxford Toyota is the place to go for you, regardless of where you live in Mississippi. It really doesn't take that long to drive from point A to point B anywhere in the state. And the drive to Belk Ford and Oxford Toyota on Highway 6 West in Oxford could very well be worth your while. Great selection available right now. If you have a vehicle that, as declared by your insurance company, was a total loss in the recent winter storm, then you are eligible for Ford employee pricing. That could lead you to thousands of dollars of savings at Belk Ford. They'll get you the best financing as well. They'll help you find the vehicle that you are looking for, and they're just fantastic people. I know we like to make jokes about Richard and his F-150s and stopping by Belk and whatever, but I do stop in from time to time and just visit with the crew at Belk Ford because they really are good people. They've been good to me for a long time, and they'll be good to you as well. Please, I promise they'll take care of you. Tell them you heard about them on SuperTalk Mississippi on Mornings with Richard Cross. I'd appreciate that very much. Tom Homan had a press conference earlier this morning in Minnesota in which he announced that Operation Metro Surge is coming to an end. Compromise seems to be what we have finally gotten in the state of Minnesota. What do you mean, Richard? I mean that Tom Homan says, I'm very pleased to report that this surge operation and our work here with state and local officials to improve coordination and achieve mutual goals, as well as our efforts to address issues of concern here on the ground, have yielded the successful results we have come here for. As a result of this surge operation, we've greatly reduced the number of targets for enforcement action, and many criminal aliens have been arrested and taken off the streets, including murderers, sex offenders, national security threats, gang members, and other violent criminals. He also outlined that over 3,000 abandoned children have been located and secured, children that were just lost in the system during the previous administration. But ultimately, here was the compromise. Yes, we, the administration, and the National Guard and ICE and all of those entities, we will back off if you will cooperate with us in handing over those who are in prison when they are released, if they are here illegally. That was the compromise. You're in jail. It's time for your release. You're an illegal. ICE will take it from here. That's where they ended. Is it a perfect solution? Probably not. Is it a compromise that's reasonable? Yeah, it is. Yesterday, we had the story of the El Paso airspace being closed. The Pentagon reportedly allowed U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, to use an anti-drone laser earlier this week, leading the FAA to suddenly close the airspace over El Paso, Texas. The confusing arc of events began as the FAA announced that it was shutting down all flight traffic over the city, El Paso, on the U.S.-Mexico border for 10 days. Travelers were stranded, but then the closure ended after just a few hours. The Trump administration said that it stemmed from the FAA and the Pentagon working to halt an incursion by Mexican cartel drones, apparently something that is not uncommon at the southern border. One of the people said the laser was deployed near Fort Bliss without coordinating with the FAA, which decided then to close the airspace to ensure that all commercial aviation stayed safe. Let's leave you with a feel-good story this morning. A four-legged hero lent Kentucky police a paw during a search for a missing child in his neighborhood when the pooch grabbed their attention and guided them to the boy. Body cam footage in Louisville, Kentucky shows police officer Josh Thompson and his fellow cops were searching for a missing 3-year-old boy on the 7th of January when an unnamed collie mix appeared and began barking at them. The barking was persistent. The police officer said he was a little leery of the dog, which he didn't recognize despite his usual patrols. It was then that Thompson jokingly relented and acknowledged the job. Hey, let's go find this kid, Thompson told the dog. At this point, I'm thinking the kid is in the backyard. As Thompson looked around in the backyard, the dog came to him and led the officers to the garage area where a car was parked. When the officers looked in the car, they found the frightened child locked inside in the front passenger seat. The officer immediately went into dad mode as he tried to instruct the boy on how to unlock the door. Just one more example of why dogs are the best. Thanks for being with us. For Lance Tolbert, I'm Richard Cross. This is Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi. Have a spectacular Thursday.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.